Hi, everyone. This is Alfredo from Teach for Justice. This is 2022. This is basically episode one of season one. And what we're going to do once a month is I'm going to talk about 3 to 5 items in the news that I'm following that have to do with how everything that's occurring in education might be affecting kids and teachers. So this is my January wrap up. I know it's being posted a little later than that, but there's going to be a monthly wrap up of some things in the news that I'm following. So share my screen real quick for you. And let's start with really the one I've been following the most. It's encapsulated by this Teen Vogue article here that was published on January 31st by Megan Cattell. Student walkouts over COVID are sweeping the country. And really the walkout I wanted to focus on is one in Chicago. And in Chicago, they formed a group, the kids formed a group, and they called the group Chi-RADS, right? And it was a student formed group that is protesting mask mandates, and they had a list of demands that they wanted. And you can get the link in the podcast here. But what I found really important was a couple of things. First, this was very student led. As we adults here are trying to haggle over where mask mandates fit with politics and where that fits with parenting and school boards versus administrators and things like that. We're not asking the kids themselves. We're not asking the young people themselves what they want or what's good for them or what they're willing to do or how much they can tolerate, or what they're comfortable with. I mean, I know some districts and schools are doing surveys, but I personally haven't heard of a ton of school districts or school sites acting really deliberately or consciously with intent as a result of some student surveys. So in some cases, and this is a great example, and this article from Teen Vogue has some other great examples from Oakland and Denver as well. I mean, Minnesota's got some walkouts here in February, and I'll talk about that when I recap February. But these kids started a Twitter account, an Instagram account. A couple of days before the big walkout, they posted, here's the chants, right? Here's our the things we're going to say as a group together. And so it just really gave the impression that they were super organized. And they did. They walked out. Hundreds of kids all over Chicago walked out, making ultimately a bad situation, which is bad no matter what. The focus at least shifted for a minute from the mayor, the union, the administration, shifted to the kids themselves, which I thought there was a lot of power there. And the other thing is, whether it was intentional or not, since this was student led, and these Instagram and Twitter accounts were put up and managed by these young people. And so because they're under 18, I'm not going to go through their Instagram and Twitter or whatever right now. But what hit me was one moment on Instagram where one of the organizers came home from the big walkout day. And it sits with me still. She was exhausted, and in a public way, because, social media, she just recorded this authentic reaction to having contributed to organizing and participating in a walkout for their rights. And the line that hit me that she said was, "We did that." She repeated it a few times. She had a lot of adrenaline and was winding down, and it's very, uncensored. And she said, "We did that. Your grandmama didn't do it. Your auntie didn't do it. We did that." And I thought that was a powerful moment of recognition. And it'll be interesting to follow the Chicago situation and these Chi-RADS kids. Hopefully they can keep it together, after January, which I'll recap after February. It looks like they had gotten into some disagreements on what now, right? The toughest question, especially for young organizers. And it's happened over and over again in the labor movement. You make your statement, you get the attention, and you have to ask yourselves, what now? The Chi-RADS students are facing that right now. And I'm anxious to see where they go and how people who might be, willing to support them can support them and potentially guide these young people. All right, next step. This one was very viral. I don't know if you ran into it here. I'm showing a coverage of it from Newsweek magazine on January 25th by Daniel Villarreal. But this was in Texas, right? And you had at a school board meeting, you had some students show up and give their comments. And what I thought was interesting about this was the perspective. And I think it's evidence of a really strong education here that a student showed up and was very clear about their perspective. She said, I'm an honor student, I'm in the top 3% of my class. And the big line that went viral, if you didn't catch it, was she said, I'm simply going to say that no government, and public school as an extension of government, has ever banned books and banned information from its public and been remembered in history as the good guys. And the other piece of the perspective she offered the board was that she was under the impression that the book banning was for, deviant kids to read smut, I think is the word she used. And I don't want to give the kid's name. It's in Texas. Newsweek covered it. You can look it up yourself. She's under 18, but she said you're not just taking what you think you're taking away from those kinds of kids. Us honor students want access to a full education. And I'm here to address the fact that we are not comfortable with all of these books you're taking away. And so I thought that was an interesting perspective. It was a great line. As a history teacher, I can tell you it's true that the groups banning books have never been remembered as the good guys. So shout out to her teacher for making that clear to her, and to anyone who supported that young lady in terms of showing up to a school board meeting and looking those people in the eye and making that comment. Banning books is not new. Shoot, there's a banned books week dedicated to this concept. We have felt like it's the heat of it has been ramping up here at the beginning of 2022. And, as teachers, depending on what part of the country you live in, you might need to, look around. You might need to ask around and see kind of what heat there is. And, as a teacher myself, the conversation is happening. It's happening in departments meetings. It's happening with administrators. It's happening even at with the union. Like, where are our protections? Especially if, our year's already started. What if we've taught a primary source from one of these lists, really with the intent of just providing, a full education? I don't know the answer to that. I just know that prior to the last 2 years, I teach AP US history and non-AP history to 11th graders here in Southern California. We didn't get a whole long list of things you can't teach. And so if we're sticking to the California standards and, approved list of things, the College Board gives us, a thorough book on recommended ways to teach AP US and recommended sources and things like that. And, it'd be interesting to kind of put those together and say, hey, you got this banned books list. The College Board has these authors that they recommend. Something's got to give here. And what role does the College Board, or what responsibility does the College Board potentially have in either modifying in reaction to some of these trends or standing their ground? Nobody, as a teacher, nobody wants to get in trouble. Nobody wants to have their name dropped at a school board meeting and be called in for doing something irresponsible. And so this is a tricky tightrope we're walking, and depending on what part of the country you live in, the tightrope is maybe thinner and higher and with less safety nets below you. And good luck to you if you're in a tough situation. All right, 2 more here. Again, I'm taking this off by the way, I'm taking this off my Wakelet, which is on my website, and the link will be in the description box here below. It's a public Wakelet, and so I'm tracking these things as we go, what I'm looking at here. Fourth grader, this is from the FresnoAlliance.com, a voice of the progressive movement since 1996. I'm not advocating, I'm not a cheerleader for the left or the right here politically. I'm just talking to you about news I'm following. This fourth grader had an assignment, and keep in mind, for those of you who don't know, in fourth grade in California, for decades, one of the linchpins of fourth grade curriculum was what we call the missions project, and it had to do with the California missions. And prior to more awareness about culturally responsive teaching, the missions project was a very romanticized version of these Catholic missions established with the Spanish, and as over the last few years, especially, I think people were re-looking at curriculum all the way around. I mean, and this is why we see, school boards reviewing curriculum and parents being concerned about this or that. Well, in California here, people were looking at the missions a little bit uncomfortably, and it's up to you to look more into what happened to the California missions. But the missions had some pretty dark events happen to indigenous people. The conversion of the indigenous peoples here in the Southwest was by no means a smooth situation. I have a kid in fourth grade right now, and I have one that when they were in fourth grade, I remember having some tough conversations with my history colleagues about, how much detail I'm going to go into as a parent, armed with this knowledge of some terrible things that happen at these missions here on the West Coast. And is that appropriate for a fourth grader and things like that? And, how we handled that personally, I'm not going to necessarily get into, but I want to draw your attention to this. Fourth grader whose teacher or district, I'm not sure because it's in Northern California, trying to go around the missions project, offered an alternative. And this fourth grade student decided to study his school's, his elementary school is named after President James Polk, and he wanted to study and research James Polk. So this is by Vic Bedoyan. This was published on September 7th, 2021. And this young man decided in his research about James Polk, which his elementary school is named after, decided he was really uncomfortable to find out that President Polk was a slave owner, that President Polk, against the popular opinion of Congress and of most Americans, decided to instigate a war with Mexico. That war with Mexico resulted in newly acquired land for the United States. And that newly acquired land set in motion or exaggerated what had already been in motion for the U.S. Civil War. And this young man came to the conclusion that he wanted to start a petition to rename his elementary school. He was uncomfortable going to a school that celebrated President Polk because of his decisions. And so he had his points. This fourth grader had his points, he had his research, he had a persuasive argument, and he had a petition for people to sign online. This is what I'm gathering from this article. And then there was a couple of other articles from local paper that I have on my Wakelet. But at the end of the day, a parent of a student in his class complained when he alerted his teacher about what was the substance of his presentation. When he went to present, his teacher shut it down. When his parents complained, the principal got involved and said that what he was doing was inappropriate and offensive. After some back and forth, they let the kid do a Zoom video if people wanted to jump on the Zoom video. Apparently only or mostly adults attended the Zoom video. At the end of the day, he presented to the elementary school student council and asked the elementary school student council to vote on whether they should change the name of his school to another name other than James Polk. The student council proceeded to unanimously vote in favor of changing the name. Now, elementary school student council does not have any authority to actually change the name, but the idea that he researched, he felt passionate about it, he didn't take no for an answer, and he presented his case, and that other kids agreed with him, I find to be the best part of the story. I find the adults in the situation handling this in a real sloppy manner interesting and mildly disturbing. And I find it interesting that the only reason we're in this mess is because we're rethinking this California standard of glorifying these Catholic missions. The missions are a part of the history of California from a variety of perspectives. The missions are not necessarily a positive part of our history. And lastly, I'm trying to end on a mostly good note here. Has to do with, did you see it in the news? Chocolate milk. All right. So again, this is California. And again, it's fourth graders, right? And fourth grade students noticed that they had jacked the chocolate milk from their cafeteria. This is in Vacaville, California. I'm looking at abc30.com. This is from February 7th. This update is from February 7th. But they took chocolate milk off the menu, and they told the kids it had too much sugar. The kids staged a protest. They had signs. They also had chants. What do we want? Chocolate milk. When do we want it? Now. And they ultimately ended up in a negotiation with administrators. At the end of the day, what happened was the administrators agreed that once every other week, the kids would be allowed to have chocolate milk. I think the kids could have held out for more. They really stood their ground. I can appreciate the fact that it may have been their first protest, and I fully support them. There was a lot of ways to handle it. I have mixed reviews about how this was handled by the adults in the situation, but I just found it interesting, that kids this age, like the other kid who is trying to get his school's name changed, fourth graders recognizing their right to protest, recognizing their right to be heard. And the severity of the issues, one being the name of the school and the other one being chocolate milk, might be different, but I think that there's a thread there of students wanting to be heard and adults in the situation not necessarily making them feel super heard. So that's what I was looking at in January. We're going to be doing this once a month on education news, things that are affecting the young people who we are all trying to guide, to mentor, to build up, to take over when we're too old to do it. And hopefully we can all get together and support these kids.